Hey everybody, this is George Lowe here with Dan Hawkins, and we're doing the Northern Michigan Tennis Association podcast. We got to talk today with Kristen Wilson of Leelanau Love Tennis Programs. She is currently a community tennis provider, USPTA certified teaching pro, and she talks to us a lot about kind of what she does, how she got into tennis, and kind of her background and where she sees community tennis going. So we had a great conversation with Kristen, so we hope you enjoy it. So you are Kristen Wilson, Leelanau Love Tennis Programs.
Yes.
Tell us what that is, how you got there.
So it's definitely evolving, I suppose, like we all are in ourselves and our careers. But I'm based out of Suttons Bay, the tennis program that I do, Leelanau Love. So I've been in Suttons Bay for, almost 10 years, doing community-based programming. Prior to that, I came from Vero Beach, Florida. I was for about 7 years. I worked at a private club, and then for the Marty Fish Children's Foundation. And then I went back and forth for a few years working in Harbor Springs at another private club. Kind of a lot of tennis pros, finding that fit, finding what works. During different seasons of life in the tennis world, different things work. And so once I starting having my own family, that back and forth became really challenging. I've been teaching tennis full time since I was about 25. So about 15 years, 16 years full time. I'm a USPTA certified professional, always learning and growing and with the game. But I played as a junior. I picked up a racket for the first time actually in 6th grade, which now it seems so old for kids start so young now. Right. And people ask me all the time, especially in the world, and maybe you guys hear it too, like, how old were you when you started? Or did you start playing when you were 4 or 5? And I was definitely now considered late to the game. I don't know where you guys fell on that, but I had a math teacher in 6th grade that ran our community tennis programming, but also our middle school team and a high school team. I went to Holly, a rural town north of Detroit, south of Flint, a farming community. A very not a lot of financial resources the community was really good at growing corn, dairy cows, and tennis players. So it was just really neat to be a part of a program in a community like that was so successful. But so that's kind of where I said, okay. I went to my first practice was in a middle school gym because it was Michigan spring and hitting off a wall. And that was it. I was, hooked from there on. Didn't have a lot of resources to play private lessons or private groups when I was younger. It was always a real treat to get a lesson or to be able to do a clinic. When I was a kid, I had my dad put up a wall down, in our driveway down off of a tree. And that was basically like, if you hit 50 balls off of that, you can take a lesson. If you can hit 150 balls off of that, you can take, and that was my number one partner growing up was a wall. So I never won. The wall always won.
Yeah.
The only thing. So just very different, I feel like, my experience growing up playing maybe to my experience teaching and where kind of it's evolved to now. But I also loved kind of my relationship with the game and how it started. Then I went in, at 8th grade, I started the USTA tournament that, got hooked on competing. Played in high school. I took a break in college. Feel like I suffered from the burnout personally a little bit. And then I fell in love all over again when I started coaching, just in a different light. And kind of went from there. I had no intentions of teaching tennis full time or of that being my career. Just kind of fell through some really special people that I crossed paths with. My one of my first mentors ever was Mike Raleigh. I think a lot of people in the Did you ever get a chance to meet Mike, George?
I never met Mike.
But have you heard, has he been out? Yeah. Just kind of a staple, especially in Northern Michigan. But so he went down to Florida too in Vero Beach. So I was coaching with Drelo, who was absolutely amazing. Another I feel like woman pioneer of Northern Michigan tennis. and Tina Blackman and Margaret. And I just had this wonderful group of I'm like, that's what these people do. I can do this and, make this a thing. Denny Green, a wonderful kind of mentor at that season of life. So I did have a full-time job with the health department at the time that was grant funded, and I was running out of, the grant wasn't getting renewed. So I was not going to have a job. And Mike had come to a boys tennis practice that I was running with Dree. Actually, I remember the boys were being a little squirrely, and I had to get a little maybe tough back, which is not necessarily my comfort zone. And he was basically like, "You're hired. When can you start?" It's just the funniest little start to that relationship. And so I started working for Mike. He got me a job in Florida, and then the rest then I came up here once we had a family. So just never looked back.
Wow. That's cool. So, so after college, that was when you had the grant funded job.
I worked. Yep. I was a prevention specialist for a few years out of college with the Northern Michigan Health Department. So I worked in the schools, and it was a school year based job. I loved the work. Worked in drug prevention, bullying prevention, youth leadership. But it was all funded, federal and state funding. But I had my summers off with that job, so it allowed me to work at clubs too. Actually, my first summer, I think I was 23, I worked at Bay Harbor. They had 2 clay courts there, and it wasn't much of a program at all. It was just kind of being accessible. So when I first did that, it just didn't feel like there was this massive clientele or need, and it didn't spark too much. But then that fold, I think I started coaching probably that same time.
Yeah.
In Petoskey.
Okay. And so Dree, just I guess background, Dree Lowe was the high school tennis coach in Petoskey. Did she coach boys and girls?
She did. Well, at different times. I think at that time, yes, but it through the years that changed. So I don't want to mess up her amazing kind of story. I believe at the time that I was involved, she was varsity girls, JV boys, because John Boyer, I don't know if you know that John Boyer.
Yeah, I know John.
I think he might have been the varsity coach at that time, but I think eventually Dree did do varsity. But I moved. I think I only coached for 2 years. I think 4 seasons, boys and girls, 2 years. I wasn't married and I didn't have kids at that time, and it was just so much fun. I mean, I can't encourage enough. I mean, I just think everyone should experience coaching at that level at some point in their life. It was just so wonderful. It's so time consuming.
Yeah.
Just such a positive. The amount of stuff I learned from those high school kids, I mean, just incredible. They're just such amazing. They're figuring out so much at that stage of life.
Sure.
And you get to be, along for the ride.
And so when you were coaching the high school teams, were you also doing lessons outside of that, or was it just the high school coaching?
Not a lot. No, I wasn't doing lessons. So my first summer was at Bay Harbor, and I think that next summer I was coaching, and then at Little Harbor Club in Harbor Springs. And I did Little Harbor Club, I think, for 4 summers, I think, because then I went to Florida, but I would still come back and do Little Harbor Club in the summer.
Yeah.
And I think I did that for the back and forth for a couple of years. So I didn't do any community teaching at that time. But Petoskey, that was a well-oiled machine then. They have an awesome summer tennis program too, that grassroots. And, but it was, I was supporting myself too. So I had to be mindful of making money. Finding that sweet spot.
Yeah, the community tennis portion is like it feels really good, but sometimes it's not the most lucrative part.
Right.
And then sometimes like the really lucrative ones, it's like you miss some of the connection from working in a community program. Is that a fair assessment?
I think it's so true. And that's what I love about the evolution for me. And I think happens, you could probably say the same thing. And anybody who's going into the world of tennis and careers, I would love to see more women in the world, and you can take it in so many different avenues, in so many different ways, through so many different parts of your life. I taught through 3 pregnancies. My first pregnancy, I was 40 weeks pregnant, still on a tennis court, and it was just the best experience. And then you can cut back some, and then you can find and fit in a different way. Now with small kids, I teach only what I can that works for my family, and then maybe when they're older, I'll teach more, and maybe I'll go private again, or I'll stay community. I mean, it's just so neat how there's so many options. And I just would just encourage anybody interested in that and kind of growing the game and sharing with others, just to explore all the avenues, because there really are a ton.
Yeah. Yeah. It can be a very entrepreneurial and work around your schedule and kind of like work for yourself type of career.
Right.
It's cool.
And you could take a different route and be at a club or be in an organization, or, I mean, you obviously have such a strong USTA background, and maybe not on the court. I just think there's so many cool ways to make that a part of somebody's story and life and share it. And it just, like I said, that was not my dream. It wasn't something. I always loved tennis, and it makes sense that this is the path I took. But I don't think if somebody would have told me when I was a junior, you could do this for a living, you could provide for your family this way, I would have stumbled on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Would you say, so kind of going back to like community tennis and the kids, and, you mentioned that you started, like, you felt like these days would be considered started late into tennis. How has community tennis, or the tennis world that you were in, how's it changed from when you started playing to then maybe coaching first and now coaching now?
Yeah, I feel like your geographic region also plays a role. So I feel like I've kind of gone through different waves of where I've lived, definitely playing a role too. And like I said, when I was growing up, we did have probably more accessibility to indoor clubs maybe than here, but it was like the financial accessibility that, of course, for a lot of people is hard. But in my particular community growing up, I mean, this is what you have to do in Michigan. I mean, it's like the second that snow stops, you got to hit the course out, get outside right away and have somebody in your community that's willing to make that happen. When I had the opportunity to experience the game in Florida, that was completely different. I mean, it's year round, it's accessibility constantly, it's clay courts and hard courts, and just any capacity, any level. I got to be a front row seat to some really high level playing, and be a tiny part of different people's stories coming up through the ranks. And it was much more, well, not in my club experience, but with the Marty Fish Foundation, I got a little taste of, playing the junior circuit, not myself, but with players, and what that was like. And it was just an easier access. Kids could be on a court year round, and it's just a game changer when that is available, and that you don't have to pay indoor fees, or, even transportation. I think, we've talked about those struggles before for people in Leelanau County right now. It's the summer program here, even the 3-season program has grown. People, when you're in Sutton's Bay driving even into the Y sometimes, or into the resort in the winter, feels like you're just going on a road trip. It's really hard to make that sell because it's so much work to get there. So I think you just lose all your recreational players just take a break. There might be the occasional competitive player, high school player that will make that commitment from out here. But I think that is one thing that is a struggle. And I go back and forth from feeling like, is it a struggle or is that okay? Is it, that's just how it is. And they keep coming back every spring, and they keep showing up every summer and playing into the fall. And maybe that's okay that it's not anything more than that. We're not necessarily growing really competitive players out here right now, but more so I've kind of really had to switch gears myself and welcome the fact that recreational is equally as beautiful of a game, in many ways more to me now, because you don't have, I experienced the burnout and the I'm done. I need a break, where I try to come at it from a different angle now, um, of just really teaching the art and the practice of tennis. There's so much you learn on the court that applies to life, and just the mindfulness aspect, and just kind of really weaving that into the programming, and not so much only focused on growing competitive players.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
there's a distinction there. When you maybe are more when you're related to like a private club or an indoor facility, let's say, those players that come there and that pay membership fees and pay indoor court dues, those are the frequent players or the really competitive players, let's say.
right.
And then being involved with that club side, you really trying to develop more of those customers, right? Like, how do we get them to become frequent players and things like that?
Yes.
Whereas, like maybe in the community side, you're it's like more it's very wide. It's a wide net. It's everybody. It's very accessible, and like you said, maybe more seasonal. But both are needed. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but like, have you found anything that you see, or what are the common things that you see that take that community? Maybe that's where they get their experience, and then what transitions that player to a competitive player, where they're like, "This is all I want to do year
Mm.
round. I just so love tennis."
I think a big thing is introducing competitive play, even if you don't have. So that's again a constant struggle out here. I really kind of, for example, I reformatted this fall, my fall after school tennis, and really trying to remove the feeding the games, even though that's really fun, but just getting them out there and they get a little stroke development or instruction, but they are doing match play constantly, like starting at rally with the rally ball with the little ones. But once they can start competing and playing, it then becomes it shifts from this social fun, I get to see my friends, to ooh, I just like won that game, or I just won that point. And I think you can do that even if you're not playing other teams or traveling. You just do it within your own program, and just really encouraging competing. That's something I need to do better, because they always want to play the games. Like, I have a ton of 10 and under kids, and they love the jailbreaks and the fruit salad and around the world, and that's all so fun too. You want it to be joyful, but in order to kind of touch and give a taste of that in a competitive spark that might grab 3 of them or 4 of them, getting them competing and playing matches is, I think, so important and underrated. You could take all the lessons in the world and clinics in the world. You got to play matches. You got to win and you got to lose. So, but then from there, my struggle here in my community is where to take those. Now they have the bug and they have that taste and they want to keep coming. Where do I send them next? Especially if resources are limited.
Yeah.
And transportation's limited. There's a lot of, even in our county, from like a school standpoint, I've grown into, we now have a middle school program that's fairly new. From there, if you want to play in high school in Leelanau County, you are on a co-op team, countywide, boys and girls, that's based out of Glen Arbor. For anyone that doesn't know, like logistically, I mean, that's a good 35-minute drive from Sutton's Bay when you're practicing 4 days a week and matches. And it's a tough ask for working parents that to get their kids picked up from school and drive them across the county. And it's just not feasible for most people. We've had some in Sutton's Bay that's come up through this program filter over there, but it's just what happens is they get in middle school, they start to think, what sports do I want to play in high school? And I lose a lot of players in the middle school level because they start to commit to something else because that's what's available in their high school here. I think that's great too. That's why I've had to really adjust my expectations or our goals in the community. But I think in order for it to continue thriving and growing more competitive kids, there needs to be a high school team on this side of the county. So they have that to work towards, because that's what kids start thinking about.
Yeah.
So what am I going to do? What am I going to play in high school?
Right. Yeah, if all of a sudden you get to middle school and you don't see a high school step, you look for what's there already, and
Mhm.
then that can take your attention away from maybe,
Yeah.
high school. Now, Dan, you have some experience, kind of the same thing. You guys in Gaylord started with a kind of an elementary school, then middle school,
Mm-hmm.
and now there's a little like some interest in high school. And can you talk about a little bit about like I don't know if it's correct to call it a club team?
Yeah, it's definitely a club team. We've pursued forming a proper Gaylord high school team with not quite the numbers that we would need to do so, but a couple of handful of passionate girls and guys that really love to play and are now high schoolers. They've been playing since they were elementary age. We also have a good group of kids that are middle schoolers and have been enjoying that even more. Actually, that group is even more passionate about playing, and they really want to play high school. So there's already they're starting. There's another age below that. They're really starting to lead up into this high school team right now. Again, we don't quite have the numbers, but we put some feelers out there over the last year, and we had about 12 gals sign up, and several of them hadn't played. We have a handful that have, and several of them that are new to the game, but have started playing this summer and training in anticipation of playing as a club team next spring. And
What
so,
court? Where do those kids, those club, the high school club, where are they playing at? Like, where's their
yeah,
home base facility? Is it that tennis like
the
the tennis
Sportsplex
complex?
in Gaylord. Yeah, the Sportsplex. Yeah, there was only 4 outdoor courts there,
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah, but they're the beautiful in single fenced and all that. So
Yeah.
that's where we've all trained all summer, and fall now, and we're still trying to linger out there another day or two maybe yet before the snow flies. And we actually have, thanks to a couple of other schools around, taken our guys and girls because we've combined it. We just said, well, you're going to play together, you're all going to practice together, with the guys and girls combined, some of the high schoolers and some of the middle schoolers together on this club. They're competitive and they're having a lot of fun. So we got to go and play TC West, mostly girls and one guy because one of our guys got injured, and we played in Alpena, and they got that competitive feel to play other high schoolers, to normalize, to see for the first time other high school aged kids playing and winning and losing, and because they've kind of been in a bubble, so to speak. We
Yeah.
did travel last spring to watch a couple of girls matches with some of our girls in Boyne City. There was a three where the 3 teams come together, and
Okay.
we watched, and they were inspired just watching that. They're like, oh, I could play them, I could compete, and it really lit their fire, a lot of the girls that up until then it hadn't happened. We pursued a couple of co-ops actually, but those kind of fell through, and so we just decided to start the club because one of our gals is a senior this year, and we want her to play while she's still here, and that's where we're at right now. We're optimistic to have the 12 that signed up, and not all of them have stuck with it all summer, but they have shown commitment. So I'm hoping once fall and winter sports are done, they'll come back and play with us in the spring.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, one of the maybe advantages is there's a few schools in Gaylord like right there. Like there's
Yeah,
not people aren't, I don't think, are have to travel that 30 miles, 30 minutes or
correct.
Mm.
whatever across a big long distance. I mean, I don't know for sure, but that's
Well,
what it sounds like. Like they're mostly pretty close.
yes, we have
Um,
the St. Mary's, the Gaylord St. Mary's, and we have Gaylord High, and we technically have a Vanderbilt, which is only about 15 minutes away, and then Johannesburg, which is about 10-15 minutes away. But yeah, no, it's easy when they don't have to travel 30, 35, 45 minutes. Obviously, to play matches, we all have to travel, but that's part of the game. And we actually, because we're in a county-wide, we did invite homeschool community kids. And so part of our team is comprised of kids that are homeschooled.
Yeah, we've thought about, I mean, I've kind of thought on that same track here. It's such a, because the homeschool community is so big here as
Mm,
well. And I'm actually a part of it with my kids. And I feel like we'd run into, you can't play, like, let's say it was a club team though, that then grew and was welcomed as a high school team, then the homeschool kids can't play. And I think that's a state, you have to be enrolled in 50% of in-person classes or something in order to play on the JV or varsity team.
gotcha.
So I worried of just almost like false growth here of doing
mhm.
that. And then
and then not being able to compete, like you
Yeah.
practice,
Yeah, then you lose, and it's
you're
like,
ready.
right, like
Yeah.
false, even for those kids. But, and the other thing I'm thinking and listening to this, I'm curious about, so our facility is 4 courts where I practice or run programming out of. It's a township park. Very grateful for the space. They're beautiful courts. Where you were a part of that whole process, right, George? Getting like that funding. Were you a part of that?
A little. It was
Oh,
a long process that was started by the person, my predecessor. I was,
oh, okay,
yeah, just kind of followed followed the
okay.
lead of the local folks. But yeah, I do remember that happening.
So when I moved back to Michigan, I was still in Florida, and we knew we were moving to Sutton's Bay, and I didn't know anything about anything here. I've never lived here before. We picked it, didn't have really ties here, and I had found information on like there was courts online or something. So my summer here was the first summer those courts existed. So I feel like the timing was just so lovely. But I was basically on tennis courts in the middle of like a dirt field. I mean, it was just so I don't even know if there was no bathrooms out there that summer. It was just real rough, but I love the courts were so nice. And one of the things that was said at the beginning was they just want people to know they exist. Can you just, anything you can do is great. I just, at the time, I was like, I thought I'd just teach a few lessons just to kind of see how much I wanted to do. Anyhow, that park in general has imploded in the great ways. I think just with the tennis, the first summer, I think I had 30 kids. And now throughout the year, including after school tennis, we get about 150 come through the courts. Which for the, a summer transient and vacationers, but now there's 4 going on 8 pickleball courts and soccer fields and frisbee golf. But it's space is finding time, like court time, that now is become a real challenge. Even for my summer programming, there is strong opinions. There's confrontations on the court throughout the summer at various times, people coming, and schedules are posted and nothing's a surprise. And the township is so supportive, but everyone wants to use the court for what they want to use them for. So in growing like a high school team, I think in August when practices start, we wouldn't even be able to use the courts because it's so hard to, I've gotten an earful when little kids are out there playing because people are upset that they can't, have their weekly match. I use up court time about 6 hours a week for programming in the summer for group classes. And my private lessons are very, that's 1 court, but the other one, you're using 4 courts. You don't know. I just don't have can't figure out a way. The way around it is we need more tennis courts on school property.
Yeah, it sounds like an infrastructure, like a really good problem that, you think about, funding sources for recreation and tennis and all this is like, let's, that sounds like a need for to continue the growth of tennis. How do we make a case for, to however many more tennis courts, are needed?
That's what, and I think that would be, I feel that is the next step. And it's been talked about in, with we have a CTA. So we've talked a lot about it. I feel like it's just finding whether it's if I were to do it or somebody, the person, the passion. I mean, leading a project like that is no easy feat I think that the superintendent in Sutton's Bay schools right now is so positive and supportive but it's hard. Who has the space? Who has the land? Would it go? I've gathered there's not room at Herman Park to put in 2 more courts. So you'd be splitting. Anyhow, these are just all little things that when you think about growth and what direction, I mean, I could talk till I'm blue in the face about, I don't know, in my next life, I'm going to build an indoor facility in Leelanau County. I don't think it's going to happen in this one.
That's so it kind of leads us kind of here to the kind of maybe the end of our conversation, or the beginning of the end, where, what do you see as kind of like the future of tennis where you're at? What are your hopes and dreams, and where do you see it going, and what's, what could be as far as community tennis or even competitive tennis infrastructure, all that stuff?
There's such good questions. I feel like it changes for me all the time. I don't know if it's always evolving on what I would love to see happen in the community, because coming off this summer, everyone's really happy with where it's at. There's no doubt the 10 and under is like the meat and potatoes of the tennis programming here. I do adult clinics too. Those have doubled. I had to add another time there. I don't get a ton from the actual community parents. I don't have people saying, I want tournaments. I want groups. I want leagues. I don't hear it. They just want to have fun, and they just want to play, and they love the social aspect. So sometimes I'm like, this might be what is meant to be here, is just kind of how it is. I am also only one person. I feel like if we were to continue that growth past middle school, there would have to be somebody else coming into the scene to help nurture the littles all the way through. That's, I feel like, another set of hands and time. I do think that Leelanau County could undoubtedly support its own little indoor facility for so many reasons. I mean, we haven't even mentioned the word pickleball yet. So I mean, just just to have a facility that can maybe accommodate both. I don't know, but it's who's hungry enough to kind of make that happen. Is it necessary? I don't know. I just know that people are happy. They're learning a sport they're going to have their entire lives, even if they don't compete. And that's something I have to just remind myself all the time. That I've gotten a lot of parents who are sign their kids up, and they go, I always played as a kid. I just want my kids to know how to play, to just have the basics. So we're doing that really well, I think. And there's never a shortage of smiles and good energy when we're at the courts. And so I've kind of followed the trajectory of my own kids' timeline. So my oldest is now in 6th grade, and I'm sure if it's an interest as a parent, you tend to really fire up extra when you're trying to make things happen for your own kids. So that might be a fire that's lit at a point because of that, and I push harder. But I'm just so thankful for the program that does exist, for the volunteers that are here, for, I'm now that being grassroots, I have kids I had when I first moved here that I have now working in the summer or volunteering in the summer. So kind of growing, they're growing up on the court through the program, and it's just so cool to see. So even if they're not playing competitively, I had 3 girls helping this summer. You don't need to be the best tennis player on a high school team to be able to help little kids on the court. So just kind of enjoying those wins and appreciating it for what it is.
Yeah. That's cool. So what I heard was you're the future owner of an indoor tennis / pickleball facility, future Suttons Bay High School tennis coach, and then some. So I mean, it sounds like a bright future.
I need another couple warm bodies.
Yeah. I think, that's a big issue, I think, right now in the tennis industry, is where are we going to get the instructors that we need? Because as you're seeing the demand for whatever your tennis needs are, they're increasing, whether it's clinics or competition or leagues, whatever, just court time.
Courts, yeah.
It's all increasing, and the infrastructure and the volunteers, the coaches, all that stuff, the organizers, we need the increase in those people as well.
Right.
And so hopefully, the geniuses that whoever runs the professional tennis management programs and all that stuff, they're trying to recruit new people to those types of programs. And I think those are great avenues. And I also think the demand sometimes just the demand will bring the help,
like a natural organic shift that happens. And I feel like that's where I'm trying to find peace in that, of just I'm just gonna keep putting it out there, but the cards are gonna fall where they're gonna fall. And but when what you were just saying, I guess that is one thing that I would love to shine light on. Is I just, I had the opportunity to do that most recent USPTA conference, the World Conference, and I've noticed this of the last ones. I always try to pick those up when they're in Florida. It's accessible to get to them. The content is amazing that's covered there. And we did talk about this at a breakout group there, but those USPTA conferences at that world level are very much so catered to club tennis. I feel like it's very much like your high income club players, income generating. Like, how do you get more players to come? How do you keep your women's teams happy? How do you keep, that's just, how do you keep them showing up? How do you keep them, your numbers growing? And that's all really good. But it was just so very, very obvious. There was very little content on growing community tennis. How do you reach the players that can't afford to go to the clubs? And I just think that's a really big, and we already have this misconception in the tennis world that it's an elitist sport, which I argue the complete opposite. It's something that you can do with one other person, usually for free, your entire life, and with very little equipment. And it's really financially accessible. I think we just need to, like, the changing that narrative from the pros standpoint, trickling on down. We spend a lot of time, money, and energy supporting our club pros. And I just think we need to do a better job supporting our community pros too. Even just getting to the conference. I have friends who kind of teach recreationally that don't ever go to the World Conference because they're not supported by a club. They don't have somebody paying for it. It's expensive to get to. So they're missing out on all this amazing content that could grow you as a coach and a professional because of financial reasons, because you don't have a club paying. It's there should be a scholarship program or a way just to grow community numbers, not just for players, but more enticing to get professionals engaging in community tennis. Don't know exactly how, but that was definitely just felt like a really obvious takeaway to me on this last one. And it was no fault of anybody's. It was a wonderful learning experience, but there was very few people there representing a community-based program.
Yeah. Do you think a lot of times those community rock stars get, like, they're like, there's a lot of opportunity in the private tennis club world. Like, they're being picked out of the community to work at a club or grow programs. And it's like, who's left to fill those shoes? I just, every community in Michigan you look at and you say, oh, the tennis is the way it is there because of these handful of people. And if those people weren't there, it wouldn't exist, right? So I'm sure it's the same for other sports like football, cross country, like all these sports. There's just somebody that's given so much time and effort that's really where it starts. So, what are we doing to inspire those people to be the person, right? To be that person. I don't know. Maybe that's.
That's also, it is. You hear everyone's story, and I know I can relate myself. Like, that was my story growing up. There was somebody who gave 35 plus years of their life to the program. Mm-hmm. It was as simple as that. And those are big shoes to fill on a community level, and with very little. It's going to be someone's second or third job.
Yeah.
To do that, unless I don't know whether is it anything on the USTA level, on our college, our professional tennis management programs or something. Is there any way to make incentives, make grants, do something that townships or municipalities could apply for some kind of funding that might help support a grassroots program? Or I just feel like we're missing. So, you look at some of our best tennis athletes on the circuit came from playing on city courts. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we're probably missing so many good potential players.
I think the hard part is I think there are resources out there. I think it's just they're not well known, and not a lot of people go searching for them. We don't promote them enough. They're not top of mind.
Okay.
But Northern Michigan Tennis Association does $500 grants for communities. So like any township or any place that has, or a school or a high school program or anybody, once a year, they'll give you up to $500 for whatever you need. That I do know that's a line item that our president, Sue, Northern Michigan Tennis Association president, feels very strongly about and keeps in the budget every year.
Yeah.
But I don't know that enough people know about it, and how far does $500 go?
There's been times on some of the, like, even I know for me and who's the gal with USTA right now? She's so great with her like emails and communication.
Karen,
reach out on different things, and it is a time thing. I know, like for me, I'm going to be writing the grant. I'm going to be doing, like, sometimes I'm like, I'll just donate the $500 to the program because it's just going to be my time doing it all. And because it doesn't go that far now. And I know that can't be, that mentality is like my own, that's on me, but just need more.
I mean, does it make sense to instead of doing 12 $500 grants, do we do one $5,000 grant, and pick a community every year? That goes much further. Do we go wide, or do we go narrow and deep and donate a lot of money? Maybe that's a better approach, but I don't know.
Yeah, to make it worth that time.
Yeah. Well, we're coming to the end of our time, but before we go, first of all, thank you for your time. I feel like I learned a lot talking to you, just about your experience, and I hope that it's been valuable. And I think it will be valuable for people to tune in and hear what you had to say. But also, where can we find you? Where's your stuff? If people have questions or they want to talk to you, maybe there are volunteers that want to come and help with your tennis programs, or they have ideas and can help. How do we get in touch with you, and how do we find you?
Thank you for allowing that chance to share, and for this time, and just what this is going to be so fun to listen to different people that you have on here. So I'm excited for what's to come. But so Leelanau Love Tennis. I'm not fancy enough for for a website, so I'm sorry that's not there. But I do have a Facebook page and an Instagram. Leelanau Love Tennis Programs is the Instagram. Facebook, Leelanau Love Tennis Programs. We also have a CTA, Leelanau Community Tennis Association, and you can search that on Facebook, or we have a link in the Suttons Bay Township website. Emails are always welcome. My email address is Kristen R. Wilson @live.com. And always looking for volunteers. Our CTA membership is $15 a year for an individual and $20 for a family. So very minimal. We're trying to just grow our numbers, grow our worth. We're taking down windscreens tomorrow night. Everything at the courts is volunteer driven. Always try to bring snacks and food. But just the more the merrier, especially with ideas. I mean, just we need a few more Army members.
Awesome. Well, yeah, hopefully this will, once we get this all posted, and we'll share the once it's up there and people can listen to it, we'll share it with you, and you can blast it out on your socials, and we'll do it on ours. And hopefully it starts generating buzz, just like people talking about it, and people sharing it, and getting into tennis, and making, tennis cool and like a thing that people talk about. So
tennis is cool.
Yes, right? Tennis is very cool.
Tennis is cool. I do always like to say the programming that I offer, because it's the first question is, I've never played, I'm not any good, or I don't know. It's all ages, it's all skill levels, all seasons of life. Everybody is welcome, and the youth programming is all pay what you can. So there's a suggested amount, but if you can't, every family has different situations, and there's no questions asked. So.
Well, it sounds really cool, and I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in it. So hopefully we help you out as well. So thank you so much. Hopefully maybe we'll do this again. We do a follow-up.
That sounds wonderful. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool.
I learned a lot. It was a lot of fun.
So nice to hear your little bit of a story. I want to hear more about that program too. So I hope you're interviewed on one of these. Can you run it and be interviewed?
Oh, I'm not running anything. I'm just sitting here. George is running it.
It looks like you're running something.
Does it? Okay. Well, yeah. I'm
super professional.
I'm piloting the ship here. That's what I like to say.
Running of the techie.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Kristen. Yep. We'll talk to you again soon.
Sounds great.
All right. Bye-bye.